flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
That is right. For all of you who celebrate, which I think at Score Northland is everybody, welcome in. It is Reckless Speculation Thursday. Phil, not here for this segment. He will join us after we do wrap up what is / Reckless Speculation Thursday with the scoop with Doogie, Judd, Declan, and of course, our buddy Darren Doogie Wolfson, the star of the show, from Score North fame of scoopage, and then also downstairs Channel 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, where you get more scoops as well down there. And Darren, I would like to, first of all, bow to the scoop master. I would like to shout you out, as the kids say, to give you credit. You have, I feel like you have been on top of the ever-evolving, I think is the fair term, Timberwolves executive search, where things are going, who's going to get the job possibly. About a month ago, you're like, yeah, you know, an Elton Brand might be in the mix. Certainly not a slam dunk, no pun intended, that Sachin Gupta gets the job. And then I believe it was Sunday, but with us on Bonus Scoop Tuesday, you came in and said, gentlemen, this team is going big game hunting. And I want to say that's the first time I had heard that. Like, that took it to another whoa. And you said, very responsibly too, so I'm going to give you credit here. Reckless speculation, but you controlled yourself completely. Because what you said was, I've got some names. I don't feel super comfortable floating them yet because they're not necessarily, I think at that time, completely confirmed. But there are some names, and you gave us conferences, that those gentlemen would be like top of the class, head of the line. And then there was a report that came out on Wednesday. But my point is, I bow to you as being a person that has brought a lot to this show. And I think a lot that, if nothing else, builds for people to also sniff around on. But you have been ahead of it since it started. Fantastic job. I'll shut up. What else can you tell us?
Well, thank you, Judd. Good morning. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Judd, you followed the script I emailed you brilliantly. You read almost verbatim how I wanted you to introduce this segment. So thank you. I owe you, whether it's a 24-pack of Surly, whether it's me just cutting you a big fat check. That was
I'll take the Surly.
fantastic.
Take the Surly.
All right,
I'll take the Surly.
Surly on me in the very near future. So thank you for that over-the-top introduction.
Oh, no, it's true.
So, yes, I actually have some regret. I'll be fully transparent here, Judd. I should have named the names at least on Tuesday. Was somewhat reluctant on the Scoop podcast, my latest on Sunday. I should have named the names on Tuesday. I had it strong enough. I just wanted it a little bit more. My fear was the aggregators would run rampant. But I shouldn't worry about that. So, yes, when I alluded to on Tuesday that there are 2 Western Conference final decision makers plus 1 Eastern Conference final decision maker that are atop Marc Lore's list, Alex Rodriguez's list, yes, one of those names is indeed Tim Connelly of Denver. Kudos to the Athletic Shams, Johnny K, for advancing it a bit further on Wednesday, suggesting that the Wolves have initiated dialogue with Connelly. If you remember, in this very spot last week, I said there was buzz that the Wolves had sought out permission from another team to interview a candidate for the president of operations job. Well, that was with the Denver Nuggets. That was with Tim Connelly. The other names, I'll put them out there now. Sam Presti, Oklahoma City Thunder. Don't know if his official title is president of operations, so I don't want to say president of operations. I'll just say other teams' final decision makers, right?
Sure.
Sam Presti has final say in the Oklahoma City front office, plus a name that we've brought up going back a while, Masai Ujiri with the Toronto Raptors, who, by the way, used to be in the Denver Nuggets front office. But Tim Connelly certainly appears to be at the top of the list, more so because certainly on Masai, like, I don't think you're plucking him out of Toronto. With Presti, all those first-round picks Oklahoma City has for the next 3, 4, 5 years, going far down the road. And I don't know if the timing would be right. The landscape, what he's trying to implement down there, like it would be a really weird time for him to leave. Now, money talks for everybody, just about everybody. Everybody has a price, but I just think the timing would be really, really awkward for Sam Presti to leave Oklahoma City. Okay. Dane Moore, who's been on Score North a number of times, who does a fantastic job covering the Wolves, tweeted last night. Yeah, big-time friend of the show. He tweeted last night those names, also the names of Bob Myers, the final decision maker with the Golden State Warriors, and Pat Riley, the final decision maker for the Miami Heat. I have not heard that steam. Judd, I would buy you a million Surleys if Pat Riley left the Miami Heat.
From Minnesota at this
to come
point
here to Minnesota, much like I would buy you a million Surleys if Lawrence Frank, another really good final decision maker with the LA Clippers, we talked about him on Tuesday, if he left Steve Ballmer, the LA Clippers with Kawhi Leonard coming back next year. We know that Steve Ballmer takes care of his employees very, very well. I would buy you a million Surleys if Lawrence Frank left Los Angeles to come to Minnesota. Tim Connelly, intriguing name. Now, back in 2019, he interviewed. He went far down the road with the Washington Wizards. Ultimately decided, I'm not interested. I'm going back to Denver. I know somebody who knows Tim very, very well. This person told me last night, Judd, that Tim is incredibly loyal. It would have to take a monumental offer to pluck him out of Denver. But he is not in the upper half, I was told, of final decision makers when it comes to salary. That Denver traditionally just doesn't pay its front office people very, very well. So if you're Denver, you need to pay up. Like, I do think the man has a price. I think that price is at least 8 figures on a per year basis. So we're talking at least $10 million a year. Wow. We are talking equity. Another person who knows Tim real well said, like, I just can't see him going to Minnesota just for doubling his salary. As good as that money would be, the equity part, having a sliver of ownership, that is a big-time difference maker, right? If you're offering a sliver of ownership, that could convince him. One angle I'm still working on, Judd, how much term does Connelly have left on his contract? If he has any, then the Wolves, in all likelihood, unless Denver wants to say, okay, Tim, like, we get it, you want out, we'll let you out of your contract. But the Wolves may have to compensate the Denver Nuggets to get Connelly out of his contract. So would that be pick 19 in June? Would that be one of those 3 second-round picks? Would it be multiple second-round picks? That is another angle that I continue to pursue. I don't have the answer on that because it's possible. Who knows? Maybe his contract is up here this summer. I'm trying to find out when Tim Connelly's contract is up, but that would be another angle to all this. If the Wolves and Connelly agree to a deal, but he still has term on his Denver contract, how do you pluck him out of Denver? But this just speaks to something I've spoken about now going back days, Judd. Marc Lore, Alex Rodriguez are going big game hunting. We also wonder about the Glenn Taylor angle. We know Glenn likes to save money. Sachin Gupta would be the easy hire in that regard. But you think about the plan, and I get it that there are question marks, but right now we need to operate as if the plan continues to be that Marc Lore, Alex Rodriguez will take over as majority owners of the Wolves in December of 2023.
Right.
So presumably, unless we have another Paul Fenton type situation, the hire you're making now impacts many years down the road, in theory, when Mark and Alex are the majority owners. So they should be driving the bus in large part. My understanding is Glenn is still sitting back. Yeah, Glenn has final say, but like, I don't know if it will take a ton of convincing. You know, we went down this path on Tuesday, Judd. I was opining, wondering how much you would have to convince Glenn. I don't know if you would have to convince him a ton. Like, if Mark and Alex can complete a deal with Tim Connelly, I don't think Glenn Taylor is going to be the roadblock. But hey, credit to them swinging for the fences. I just don't know, though, unless you're offering 8 figures, plus in all likelihood, this is some conjecture, but in all likelihood, a sliver of ownership, why Tim Connelly leaves Denver for Minnesota.
This is fantastic. Declan, sound please, the reckless speculations. I mean, because we can explore a lot of paths here. So one is, I think what you're saying though too is we're going down a path that is definitely going to have Mark and Alex agreeing to help write out checks before they officially inherit the team. Okay, so off of all of this, may I make an observation that's reckless in its nature, but I'd like your opinion because of the fact that you are so involved in hunting down scoops on this team.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. Like, I'm not going to hold you back. I mean, I guess it's sort of my segment, The Scoop, but this is still your outlet. So Score North is all about you, Judd. So it's your outlet. You do whatever the heck you want.
There are you know what? And it's the only piece of real estate in my life that I've got, because I certainly don't run my house. I mean,
Stella.
Dawn and Stella run the house.
Yeah.
I can relate.
So this is my small bit of turf, but I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So it feels like this. It feels like we are in sort of fast forward, and this is not a bad thing, starting to see the new Timberwolves potentially, okay? And by that, I have seen, and you have talked about directly, the goal is to keep Gupta. So it's not like they don't like him. They just want to build this thing out stronger. I will also say this, because I don't think it's been reported, and if this goes back to when I was on the TV radio beat, it's very much true. Dave Benz would have been paid by the team. So he does the games on Bally's, but my understanding of the contracts back when I at least covered the team was the team paid, at that time, Fox Sports North for the announcers. So they basically employed the announcers, which is why they're afraid to say today is Tuesday if the team doesn't want them to say that. But my point is, it's probably almost certainly the team that decided to move on from Benz, which would be people within the team, which would be some very instrumental people, probably not the people that hired him.
Completely agree with that. This was not solely Mike Diamond's decision at Bally Sports North.
Yes, and Ethan Casson, I think, was around, who is still the president of the team, was still around when Benz was hired. My guess is he didn't sour on Benz. It's somebody who has come in more recently that said we can do better, or said let's go in a different direction. I know that we're talking about a POBO who oversees everything and might make $10 million, but your play-by-play guy on TV, important as well. My point is the ball is starting to roll very quickly on people who are new, making decisions about some very important public faces of this team. Do you agree it can all sort of be tied together in a puzzle?
It can be all tied together. We can cite some other examples. Marquise Watts is now on board in a high-level role. I've known Marquise for a while. He used to run the AAU program, basketball program here in town, Net Gain. So, like, I remember doing a story on Trent Lockett from Hopkins High School. He ended up at Arizona State, ended up playing overseas, maybe he's still playing overseas, but Watts and Lockett had a tight relationship. So I remember doing a story way back when, I don't know, whenever Trent was a junior or senior in high school. So that's when I first connected with Watts. So he now has this high-level role with the Wolves. It's all about player engagement, making the player experience that much better. The experience also for, the families of players. So Marquise Watts is now driving that bus. Well, guess who led the charge on that hire? That would be the new regime. The Chris Finch contract extension. Who drove the bus on that?
Right.
The new regime. So yes, there is a puzzle here. It is all being tied together. You heard me say on Tuesday, Judd, that if this was solely Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez's decision, they 100% would bring in somebody above Sachin Gupta. I just opined on Tuesday wondering about the Glenn Taylor angle. But now sifting through more information the last 48 hours, I'm pretty convinced that Glenn won't need a whole lot of convincing. So yes, the influence of Mark and Alex is incredibly strong.
Doogie, looking at just what the Denver Nuggets have built in the last 3 or 4 years, like I know some people kind of seeing, the Denver Nuggets, like that's not necessarily a franchise that's like that larger from the Wolves. But when you look at what they've done the last 4 seasons, I mean, it's been pretty damn impressive. The fact they won and were the 6th seed right this last year without Jamal Murray for the majority of the season, like that's damn impressive. And they went to the conference finals, I know, 2-3 years ago. I kind of feel like what the Denver Nuggets have been able to build the last 4 seasons is similar to where the Timberwolves would obviously also like to be in the next coming seasons as well. So Connelly kind of seems like an ideal person to poach from Denver and kind of mold that same stratosphere here in Minnesota.
He certainly, Declan, is, if we were making a list of the best final decision makers in the league, I think like it would be a consensus he would be in your top 10. Not sure if he's in the top 5, but he's made a lot of good decisions. Now, we could argue with Jokic, like second-round pick, there may have been some luck there, right? Like, right. I don't think when you draft Jokic in the second round, you're thinking multi-time MVP. But, like, they're really good at player development. Bones Highland, right? Not a high pick. He looks like he's going to be a good player. My guy Zeke Naji from Hopkins High School, right? I've talked to Zeke. I've spoken with Zeke's dad. Like, they love the player development side of the Nuggets. Yeah, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. Remember, Porter Jr. fell in the draft. Now, there's still question marks about Porter Jr., but still, that was a shrewd pick. Maybe it was the obvious pick, the way he was falling that draft night, but still a very good pick. Yes, I mean, heck, think about how good Denver should be next year, right? When Murray is back, when Porter Jr. is back. So Tim Connelly's body of work is rock solid. Has he hit 1,000? No. He's made some decisions where you can wonder, right? You think about the point guard they brought in from overseas. Is he an NBA player? They gave him pretty good money. I mean, there are moves you're like, I don't know necessarily about that, but he's really good. Like, I get it. Like, I understand Mark and Alex identifying Tim Connelly and saying, this guy would elevate our front office. He's really, really good.
Also, obviously, Dukes, the Wolves didn't have to worry about the draft lottery for the first time, basically, or one of the few times in the last 15, 20 years. But 19th overall in this year's draft. I know we're still a month out still from the draft taking place in the NBA, but point guard, power forward, still a position in need potentially. What do you forecast early on here as we get to your mock draft season of NBA? What do you think the Wolves are thinking when they get on the clock at pick 19?
Well, I mean, if they keep the pick, if they're picking at 19, Declan, like, you're taking best player available. If it happens to be a wing, like if the Kansas wing gets that far, like, you're not passing on that player. I don't think you're drafting for need at pick 19. Now, if the big man from Duke, Williams, who measured in at 7'2" with shoes yesterday at the Combine, the wingspan is off the charts, 5.4% body fat, 7'2" in shoes. Williams. Like, if he somehow falls to 19, like, yeah, that would fit a need, but that would make a lot of sense. Like, would you take Walker Kessler, the big man who was at North Carolina, then at Auburn, just because he can block some shots? Like, I think he'll be on the board at 19. Like, I wouldn't force feed that sort of pick. That is another angle to all this, though, Declan. So, like, the Wolves today, like, here's a mini scoop, very mini scoop. Kennedy Chandler is a point guard from the University of Tennessee. Had a good freshman year, was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. Like, he turned down every big program in the country, ends up in Knoxville. Good player. They are interviewing him today. So you put in requests to interview certain prospects. You can only interview so many. These are 25-minute formal interviews. They are interviewing Kennedy Chandler today. Well, like, who's leading that room? It's Sachin Gupta. Now, Sachin's not asking every question. There are other Wolves front office personnel in that room, Manny Rohan, Zarko Duricic, so there are others throwing questions, but clearly Gupta is the leader in that room. They interviewed prospects yesterday like Jean Montero from Overtime Elite. They'll interview more prospects tomorrow. Like, Sachin is leading all that, right? He's been empowered. He is the one who decided ultimately, let's not renew the contract of Gianluca Pascucci. I frame it as a firing, but if you want to frame it as just not picking up his option, so be it. But they decided to fire, in my mind, Gianluca Pascucci, who was in charge of their draft. He was the guy, in charge of all that for the most part. Like, he led the scouting on the draft side. They are bringing in, they have a workout next Tuesday at Mayo Clinic Square. J.D. Davison is an intriguing guard from the University of Alabama, just got done with his freshman year. Like, Gupta has a say in that. Maybe he's not, like, calling the agent, organizing the flight and all that to ensure that Davison is here. Sure. But, like, Gupta has to sign off on these draft workouts. So he's been acting as if he is the guy. So that's another layer to all this. Now, I hear Connelly is such a good guy. Like, I can remind you endless times when they hired Gerson Rosas, I had heard some of the chatter about there's some question marks there. And a lot of it was from his 3 months as Dallas's general manager in 2013, admittedly, right? So there's two sides to that story, but there were question marks about Gerson, that he had taken all these interview classes, was so prepared for the interview. Now, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but almost too buttoned up. Like, there were legit questions. Just doing enough recon so far on Connelly, like, no questions. Like, this guy's legit. Gupta, in my mind, is legit. Like, I know a lot of people who know such, and going back to his time at ESPN, who worked with him at ESPN before he was an NBA front office executive, they tell me, like, incredibly humble, like, incredibly sincere. He's a teddy bear, right? Like, Gupta's a really good guy. I've heard the same things about Connelly. So, like, do I think Gupta and Connelly could potentially coexist? I do. Chris Finch was in Denver as the associate head coach for the 2016-2017 season. Yep. So he was there when Connelly was there. So there is a relationship. I don't know how great that relationship is, but there is a relationship, Finch with Connelly. So, like, I think it could all work, but it has to be weird if you're Sachin Gupta as you're in Chicago at the unofficial start of the offseason, pretty much. I mean, there's unofficial trade talks happening. Heck, there might be some free agent tampering happening, right? I mean, there's many agents in Chicago right now. You're doing all this draft prep. The Wolves have 4 picks in June's draft. It has to be weird for Sachin Gupta to be operating right now as the final decision maker, knowing what's taking place behind the scenes.
That does have to be weird. I will say this about the Finch thing, because I know that's part of the thing, is that Finch came out in his postseason press conference and was very much on the side of Gupta getting this job. But the more I think about this and the more that you explain how this is potentially unfolding, Dukes, I wonder if Finch has been briefed or at least talked to A-Rod and Lore about this entire thing so that they might be a little bit more on the same page than we assume. And the other thing about this whole conversation that intrigues me too is, like, this is at some point in time, if the transaction goes through, and right now I think it's fair to assume it's going to, this is the end of the Ma and Pa Wolves. So, like, they're going to do things very differently. They're going to obviously structure things differently. I'm guessing on the business side, things are going to change a lot as well. So it shouldn't be surprising that if the guys have the money to go big game hunting, as you said on Tuesday, and can do it, that big game hunting in their minds is going to be at a lot of different places, and they don't consider it uncomfortable and weird. They consider it probably catching up to modern times, which you could definitely make a case that Glenn fell behind a long time ago.
Yes. There are many other organizations run differently, run how Mark and Alex want the Wolves to be run. So, yeah, there would be some catch-up taking place. I would be shocked, Judd, if Chris Finch is not aware of what's going on.
Right.
That his relationship with Mark and Alex is pretty darn good. Right? So, like, I don't think Chris is taken aback seeing all these stories this morning with Tim Connelly attached to the Wolves. Now, I will say, Judd, I'm not quite to the point you're at saying it's going to happen. Just knowing that Connelly got this far down the path with Washington back in 19, then doesn't take that job.
To be clear,
and just I'm telling you, like, I know somebody who knows Tim. Like, as well as almost anyone outside of his family. And this person just told me the man is incredibly loyal. Now, he also admitted, though, I said, well, everybody has a price, question mark. He goes, yes, I do think Tim has a price. But I'm just saying, like, there's still some hurdles there. Like, at least last night, I didn't sense anything was super imminent. I know The Athletic, said that the talks are serious. Like, to me, if you're talking with another team's president of operations, I don't even need to use the word serious. Like, that goes without saying in my mind. If that president is willing to entertain the talks, like, of course they're going to be serious in nature. You don't need to use the word serious. But, like, I don't sense, and I think The Athletic had this too, but I don't sense, at least as of last night, as of 14 hours ago, that anything was on the cusp of happening. But the fact that this is out there, remember, there's always an agenda, with the people leaking this information, right? So is it to leverage the Nuggets into paying him a lot more money? Or is it because this thing is on the cusp of happening and they don't want it to be a bombshell as it's announced? I don't know. There's all sorts of theories as to why the information has been leaked. But there's always an agenda. You know this, Judd. There's always an agenda.
Of course.
When information is leaked. And sometimes we're lied to, but not in this case. Like, there's legitimacy to the Tim Connelly Wolves team.
Yep, and Dukes, I'm not saying that Connelly to the Wolves is going to happen. What I'm saying is that new administrations, owners bring in their own people and change things a lot of times. The Wilfs did that, in a big way, because the Vikings previously through Red were far more of a ma and pa shop, and the Wilfs were like, this is not how teams run back then in 2006. So I'm not saying something's done. I'm saying that the changes are starting and you can see the pattern. And so something will get done with somebody and there will be surprises. Let's talk some Twins. But before we do, Dukes, I want to talk about a different team, and that is our friends here at Score North, Polka Dot Dairy, looking for drivers to join their team. Okay, so now you're saying, all right, give me the scoop, Judd, on some financial details, and I'll do exactly that. Starting salary, Polka Dot, $60,000. A 401k match, can't beat that. No weekends, early morning hours, so you start early, but you're done early as well. A current CDL license is required. Polka Dot Dairy, a Minnesota-based and family-owned company with a great workplace environment. That's right. Go to polkadotdairy.com and click on Jobs to Apply. Polkadotdairy.com and click on Jobs to Apply. Doogie, on the Twins, do you want to start with the Byron Buxton stuff or the decision to send Royce Lewis to St. Paul after a very impressive debut with the big club? Your decision. You tell me.
You pick. I'm trying to figure out where Tiger is right now.
Tiger, as I just saw this too, he is
recording this at the outset of the PGA.
Yeah, just had a nice, beautiful drive off the deck here when you guys were wrapping up the Wolves Scoops. He is through 7 Dukes. He's 1 under. 1 under for Tiger.
Okay, so he was at 2, so he gave one back.
He bogeyed, I believe, 4.
Playing with Rory, and, 4 under through 8.
And then Speed's classic melting down.
Zalatoris at the top of the leaderboard. This is a nice leaderboard so
all
far. Very early, but I'll take it.
Yeah. So our folks want scoops, damn it. Let's start with Buxton.
Well, what I was told on Buxton is when his knee feels better, like this 100 games, it was a nice headline on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I was told, like,
it's a goal.
No. Yeah, it's a goal, but he can exceed that goal.
Right.
Like, if he feels okay, the knee starts to feel better. Like, he's not automatically going to sit out, 1 out of every 3 games. So the number could absolutely exceed 100. Heck, it could far exceed 100. Maybe it's closer to 118, 122, 124. So, like, I get it. I get Suhan writing it because, was it Falvey? I don't remember who told Jim, but yeah. So, I mean, you write it. I get it. But, like, I don't put it this way. There's fluidity to the plan.
Yes.
It's not 100 games set in stone, right? Because a lot of people are fixating on 100 games. That's not necessarily the case.
In fact, in the clubhouse on Sunday, Buxton used the same exact term, 100 games.
I know he did, but somebody who knows Buck real well told me he may have said it, but not necessarily the case.
And just to be clear, in his career with the Twins, he has gotten to 100 games exactly once. So
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, I get it. I understand it.
There's two things here, Dukes, I think. One is we are definitely dealing with some type of chronic problem. Two is that's explained because when he got hurt in Boston, and he really wasn't hurt that bad. It looked really bad because he's pounding the ground. That was, I think now, it's very safe to say, a sign that it had flared up again. And he's like, when is this going to end? That's what the frustration was. And so I think they said, screw it. We're going to try to get you to 100 games. If you exceed it, awesome. But we at least want to get you there. And so there were some people that I think failed to recognize that this is a huge story. Like it's a great story to talk about. It's not great because as far as Buxton playing, we all want to see him play. But I think there was mass confusion generated by people that didn't understand the magnitude of the story itself and just got all upset and defensive and didn't know exactly why. So yes, I'm with you. I think he can definitely, if all goes well, he can exceed 100 games. But nonetheless, the Twins clearly have now said our goal is at least to have you play triple-digit games.
Yes, that is a good way of laying it out. Let's not forget Buck has plate appearance incentives, MVP incentives. He has financial reasons to want to play. He also, just because he's an uber competitor, I would never question the man's toughness. These injuries are unfortunate.
Yes,
heck,
agreed.
These injuries may ultimately derail one heck of a career, right? It's very unfortunate, but I'll never question that man's toughness. I've heard stories from those who know him going back to 2012 when they drafted him. Trust me. You have to trust me on this one. Do not question that man's toughness. But yeah, I think fluidity is the right word. That there's fluidity to the plan. But yes, if need be, if the knee doesn't improve, because I'm told it's the knee. The knee is not 100%. It's not the hip. Well, I'm sure the hip's not 100%, but I was told specifically the knee. When the knee feels better is the way it was termed to me. That's where there's fluidity to this, that he could exceed 100 games.
Doogie, with the decision to send down Royce Lewis, I know The Athletic reported both Dan Hayes and Ken Rosenthal that players were visibly upset, were upset, not just because they lost a game to a bad team in Oakland, but because the news of Royce Lewis being sent down kind of surprised some people. And I believe there was a note in there that Carlos Correa even wanted a word with Baldelli of, hey, why did we make this decision? He wasn't necessarily questioning it. He was curiosity on the thought process, which I think is a great sign. And look, Correa's obviously a very outspoken player. He's been like that since he was in Houston, and he's honestly kind of stepped in this leadership role with the Twins. Did you hear anything else of players being maybe more upset about that news? Were you yourself surprised that they ended up sending down Royce Lewis? What was your take on the decision to put him back in St. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I was mildly surprised. I haven't heard the player steam. It's more just the optics, right? I mean, I'm sure the players look at it and say, Jose Miranda struggling mightily. He's still here. Coming off Royce the other night when he hits a home run, makes a brilliant play in the field, also had a double. Right, so he was so good the night he was sent down that there are questions you're going to ask, right? If you're in that clubhouse, you're a first-place team, you've been really, really good the last month or so after a little bit of a slow start after those 2 Dodgers games at Target Field, right? Since that mark, the Twins have one of the best records in baseball. You see this guy contributing defensively, offensively, and you see him sent down. You have to ask some questions. Now, I did say on Tuesday, I know for a fact they discussed internally Royce's ability to play positions other than shortstop. But in the end, they ultimately decide, okay, we'll send him to St. Paul, where it sounds like he's actually going to play a good amount of shortstop, but at least pregame, like, I can't imagine he's going to focus all his work at shortstop. I plan on going over there next week. They're back home next week. Like, there has to be some position flexibility there. And he's plenty athletic enough at 22 years old. He'll be 23 in early June to play third base, to play first base, to play left field, to play center field. He has played center field before, right? We have to go back a few years. Arizona Fall League, I think it was, but
19.
In 2019. Yep. So there is some position flexibility there. By the way, I completely get giving Correa his position back. I've had people ask me that.
Yeah.
Carlos Correa is a platinum gold glove winner.
Yeah. That's not non-starter. Yeah,
Like
that's not.
Carlos Correa is the shortstop. Let's not get too far out here. But what Royce is doing after missing all of last year in 2020, he was at the alternate site, but those weren't really games. Like for him to be doing what he's doing is so darn impressive. And I have no doubt he'll be back up, heck, sooner rather than later. But I know they 100% internally discussed, okay, do we keep him here at the major league level and allow him to play other positions? Heck, like Luis Arraez. How did Luis Arraez become a first baseman? Right? I mean, that's taking place at the major league level. Like, I don't understand why he can't get work in at 2 o'clock, 2:30 pregame. Yeah, I mean, there's other examples we can cite.
Miranda's awful at first base. He has no idea what he's doing.
Well, I'm not quite sure he's that great at third base. I think it's the bat that carried him throughout the minors.
The obstruction on Saturday in extras that basically cost the Twins that game was Miranda having no idea where to go or what to do.
Well, he only played about 30 games at first base at AAA.
I'm just saying.
So he's still learning the position, I guess. But
this whole thing of you can't play a position unless you go down to AAA and work on it, son, is incorrect.
It's incorrect.
Spin. It's a spin.
It absolutely is.
Nothing more than a spin.
Is a spin, but he'll be back. I'll be curious. So he needs to at least get some pregame work in because I do think for the rest of this year with Correa at shortstop, he's going to have to play another position. He can do it.
Third base.
He's fully capable. The athlete that Royce Lewis is, he fully is capable. Yeah, it could be third base. Gio Urshela has been fine defensively, but not like Gio Urshela's bat has been great. So, yeah, it absolutely could be, third base.
Dex does not like the walk-up song.
No, I don't want to hear
the Urshela walk-up song.
Bible-thumping song. No, God, it's the last thing I like to hear.
Not on board with my Catholic upbringing, damn it.
I was Catholic upbringing, too.
So the A's, the Twins take 2 or 3 at the worst, or probably one of the 2 worst stadiums in baseball. They board a plane.
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
The one in St. Petersburg is better than that one. Yeah. Is that the other one you're alluding to?
Yeah,
I'll take the Trop. I'll take the Trop over the Coliseum.
I would rather go to a game at the Coliseum.
The Trop is the Dallas Cowboys Stadium compared to Oakland Coliseum.
I would rather go anywhere than a dome. Anyway, so the Twins board a plane for their weekend series in Kansas City, and unfortunately not on that plane, Frankie Montas, who remains with the A's. What can you tell us about the possibilities? Because it's becoming clear if the Twins are truly going to contend, and I don't mean to win a bad division, but if they're going to contend and oh my God, break their 18-game playoff losing streak, they are going to need starting pitching help. Paddock is out. Archer is, I don't think, that good. So there are some, yeah, exactly. Dylan Bundy as well. What's the steam on Frankie Montas?
Yeah, I mean, heck, I'm with you. They need more starting pitching, especially after the Paddock news is now confirmed that earlier this week he underwent another Tommy John surgery. The way he spoke with me and others in the clubhouse 7 to 10 days ago, this was inevitable. I put some of the stuff on KSTP.com, also on my Twitter. I mean, it was trending this direction, so zero surprise in that regard. They are keeping tabs on Montas. It is interesting. So the Twins play the A's 6 times. They didn't face Montas once, but they are still keeping tabs. Another thing that is abundantly clear is that Oakland eventually is going to trade Frankie Montas. There's no reason for the A's to hold on to Montas, who's under team control through next year. So any team acquiring Montas has him for the pennant race this year and next year. So the price will be very, very high. But yes, when the A's decide to go all in on trading Montas, I fully expect the Twins to be heavily in that mix.
Outstanding stuff, sir. Much appreciated. In fact, Dex, sound the applause, because I think Doogie brought it today. He was the ace of the scoopage reckless speculation. There we go.
Very good.
You want some quick hitters?
The audience loves you.
Yeah, quick hitters.
Sir. Fire away.
So I thought it was cool Orlando wins the NBA draft lottery the other night. Now, hey, they may take Jabari Smith of Auburn or the Duke kid, but the fact that Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren, like, Chet has slept at Larry Suggs' house, Jalen's dad's house. They've done sleepovers like countless times, like hundreds of times. Chet sleeping over at Jalen's house. And now they could potentially be NBA teammates. Like, I'm fascinated by that storyline. Now, Orlando may decide to go in a different direction, but I love the idea of Chet Holmgren with Jalen Suggs with the Orlando Magic. So I wanted to get that note out about just all the times going back to elementary school, Chet slept over Jalen's house. Jess Shepard of the Lynx, it was announced a week or so ago that she signed a multi-year extension. I can tell you specifically, 2-year extension. So if you're wondering, was it a 3-year extension? No, 2 years on the multi-year extension for Shepard. Gopher men's basketball can next take an overseas trip next summer. So we're seeing a lot of tweets about all these Division I teams taking their foreign trips this summer. The Gophers are next eligible for a foreign trip next summer. I mentioned the Wolves have a draft workout here next Tuesday, including J.D. Davison. And I think that's about it. I had a nice chat with Jordan McLaughlin the other day. He just got his master's degree in communications management. Awesome. So he was balancing finishing that while playing with the Wolves. So kudos to a great guy, Jordan McLaughlin. He actually has one more class to complete, but he was able to walk, cap and gown, and all that over the weekend.
Outstanding stuff. And Jugs, we'll talk to you for more scoopage, probably an update on this whole Wolves thing on Tuesday. Here's the thing, though. Coming up next, Mackey rejoins us. A Phil Mackey-generated pecking order of the most pissed off he's been about Minnesota playoff losses in honor of the Wild's complete collapse. So stay tuned for that.